I gave my childhood friend $25,000 to save his house from foreclosure while I was struggling to pay my own rent. He promised to pay me back within a year. Instead, he used the money to renovate and flip the house for a huge profit, then blocked my number and moved to another state. 3 years later, I found him through social media living his best life. Time for him to learn that I never forgot about our agreement. I'm Daniel, 32 years old, male, and tonight my hands won't stop shaking even though I'm just typing. It's wild how a person can live inside your bones for decades, how a single name can make your chest go hot and hollow at the same time. For me, that name is Mason, 33 years old, male, my childhood friend, my whatever the opposite of savior is. We met in 4th grade arguing over a scuffed basketball. By high school, we were the kind of stupid close that feels immortal. He was the loud one with chipped front tooth confidence, the kind of kid who climbed roofs to feel the air, who always swore he'd do right by the people who believed in him. I was quieter, the designated responsible shadow, remembering permission slips, fixing the chain on his busted bike, covering when he forgot curfew. We built a treehouse behind his mom's rented duplex, and when the landlord made us tear it down, he pressed a splinter of the ladder into my palm and said, "We start over, always." Years later, when we were barely functioning adults, I was working nights at a warehouse and days at a crummy copy shop. My rent was a Jenga tower, and my car sounded like a dying animal. Mason swung back into Boston out of nowhere, all smiles and big talk about getting into real estate. It was a very Mason move, breezy charisma, vague details, and a gravity pulling you in before you check for the exit. We met in the house he said he grew up in, peeling green paint, sagging porch, a cracked wedding photo face down on the living room floor like the place had been staging its own private death for years. He said the bank was going to take it by Friday. His mom had died the year before, and he swore he couldn't let strangers gut the walls that still smelled like Sunday pancakes. His voice broke on the word pancakes. He wasn't a crier, he was a yeller, a thrower, but he let one tear slide and then swiped it like it was treason. 25, he said. That's the whole. I pay you back in a year, with interest. You know me. Day one when I win, you win. I laughed because "you know me" was the most dangerous sentence Mason owned. But he hugged me hard, lifted me off the floor like when we were 14 and won that charity 3-on-3 tournament. He dug out an old Red Sox tin from a kitchen drawer, slapped a diner receipt on the counter, scribbled, "I owe you $25,000, due in 12 months. Mason, with a smiley face that somehow felt like a bruise, then pushed the tin toward me like it was an official vault. I took a photo of the receipt. I asked for a proper contract. He called me Accountant Dan and said lawyers were how dreams die. I wanted to say no. I wanted to point at the broken wedding photo and ask why everything he touched ended face down. Instead, I handed over the money I didn't have. It was my savings, my emergency fund, my rent for the next few months. I'd been saving for a tiny studio with windows that actually opened. He folded the check once, then again, until it was a sharp little white square and slid it into his back pocket. "Trust me," he said, soft. "We start over, always." On the way out, he pressed something into my hand. A rusted old house key on a keychain from our middle school. "So you know you're part of this," he said. It bit into my palm all the way home, leaving a crescent mark that didn't fade for hours. I told myself it meant I belonged to something. Later, I learned it meant I'd been locked out from the start. The next stretch of this story basically wrote itself because Mason, my childhood friend, not the other random characters in the uploaded docs, was always a storm disguised as sunshine. After I gave him that $25,000, things moved fast. Too fast. A week later, he posted a picture on Instagram. Him in a dusty hoodie, holding a paint roller captioned, "Turning nightmares into dreams." Grind mode, family legacy. I double-tapped because I wanted to believe. I wanted that peeling greenhouse to finally stand straight again. But as months slipped by, I noticed something that made my gut twist. The house wasn't just being saved, it was being transformed. New siding, gleaming windows, polished floors I knew he couldn't afford. Every photo was a flex. "Invest in yourself," he'd caption, while I was scraping together coins for my heating bill. I called. Sometimes he answered, sometimes he didn't. When he did, he brushed me off. Relax, Dan. You'll get your money back, plus some. I'm just putting in sweat equity. But the clock kept ticking. 1 year turned into 18 months. My texts started getting shorter, angrier. Rent was swallowing me alive, late fees piling like bricks on my chest, while Mason's page showed him drinking craft cocktails on rooftops with people I'd never seen before. The worst was when I drove past the house one night. It wasn't his anymore. Fresh paint, for sale, sign gone, sleek BMW parked out front. Through the window, I saw strangers clinking glasses under a chandelier. My stomach dropped through the floor. When I confronted him, he didn't even bother lying well, just laughed this hollow laugh. Come on, man. I flipped it. That's how the game works. Don't be salty. I'll hit you when I can. But he didn't hit me back. Not with money. Not with calls. Not even with words. 2 days later, my number was blocked. Facebook? Blocked. Instagram? Gone. It was like he'd scrubbed me out of existence. And there I was, sitting in a freezing apartment with eviction notices on the counter, scrolling through my camera roll at that photo of the diner receipt with his damn smiley face IOU. That night, I smashed a glass against the wall, watched it shatter, stared at the shards on the floor and thought, this is what he left me with. 3 years. That's how long silence sat between us, hard and sharp. Then one sleepless night, I searched his name. And there he was, living in Miami now, all golden tan and teeth, posing in front of a house with palm trees taller than my dreams. The caption read, "Never forget who believed in you when nobody else did." I laughed so hard I almost choked. Because yeah, I remembered exactly who believed in him. And I was done being forgotten. Don't forget to subscribe. I didn't sleep much after finding Mason's Miami life. I just lay there, my ceiling cracked like a map of everything I'd lost, replaying the same reel in my head. Me handing him the check, his voice breaking on pancakes, that rusty key pressed into my palm like a promise. The reel always ended the same. His Instagram grin, gold watch flashing, strangers calling him visionary in the comments. I thought of the eviction notice I barely clawed my way out of nights eating ramen while he installed marble countertops with my money. It wasn't even about the $25,000 anymore. It was about the ghosting. 3 years of silence. Blocking me like I was some random spam caller instead of the kid who'd patched up his bike chain, who'd built a treehouse with him plank by plank until our hands blistered. So yeah, I stalked him. Not in the cartoon villain sense, but obsessively scrolling through everything public he'd left open. His Twitter, his tagged photos. Friends posting legend when he unveiled another flip. Videos of him pouring champagne on granite countertops while I tried to cover overdraft fees. But here's what stuck out. Mason wasn't careful. He couldn't help flexing. And flexing leaves fingerprints. I learned he'd registered a real estate LLC in Florida. Found the address of the office. White stucco, palm trees in neat rows. His smile plastered on the Meet Our Founder page. For a while, I just sat with the knowledge. Powerless. Because what was I going to do? Show up and scream, "He owes me"? No court would care about a diner receipt IOU with a smiley face. No one would care about the bruise his broken promise left on me. But the rage built in strange places. At work, when my boss barked at me to mop up toner spills, I'd picture Mason sipping cocktails saying, "Trust me, we start over." When my landlord threatened to raise rent again, I saw Mason's BMW keys dangling off his belt loop. I started carrying the rusted key he'd given me years ago. The one from his mother's house, the one that bit into my palm. I didn't even realize I'd started doing it. I'd slip it into my pocket before leaving my apartment, like armor. At night, I'd set it on the counter and stare at it until my vision blurred. It wasn't just metal. It was the reminder that I wasn't crazy, that he had promised I was part of this. Then one night, scrolling again, I saw it. A photo that lit my chest on fire. Mason, grinning in front of a mansion with a pool shaped like a guitar, arm around some model-type woman, captioned, "Couldn't have done it without the real ones who always believed in me." The comments were all fire emojis, hard eyes, people calling him family. And I realized something bone deep. Mason thought time had buried me, that he'd erased me clean. But ghosts don't stay buried, and I was ready to haunt him. The first real crack in my numbness came when I zoomed in on one of Mason's posts. He wasn't just showing off houses, he was hosting events, networking mixers by the pool, flipping seminars, cocktails and catered spreads. In one video, you could hear him yelling over music, "Invest in yourself and the rest will follow," while people clapped like he was some prophet. I watched that clip a dozen times. Not because of Mason, I'd heard his snake oil cadence since we were kids, but because of the guest list. He'd tagged everyone: realtors, contractors, investors, strangers raising glasses, shaking his hand like he was a golden goose. He'd built a whole ecosystem on the lie that he was self-made. And I realized that's where he was soft. His world ran on image. He lived off handshakes, backslaps, the illusion of credibility. He wasn't just a guy flipping houses, he was a brand. And brands can be burned. That night, I couldn't stop pacing my apartment. I set the rusty key on the counter next to my phone. One relic, one weapon. My mind kept flashing between eviction notices and that stupid smiley face IOU. My body was buzzing, hands trembling the way they did the night I gave him the check. The next day, I called in sick to work. Instead, I spent 8 hours digging. Public records, property filings, every scrap tied to Mason's LLC. I found lawsuits he'd quietly settled, contractors claiming he stiffed them, bad reviews buried under layers of paid PR fluff. I printed everything out, spread it across my floor like a murder board. But paper wasn't enough. I wanted flesh. So I booked a flight. Miami. One way. I didn't tell anyone, just grabbed my backpack, the key, the old photo of that diner receipt folded in my wallet. As the plane lifted, I stared out the window, heart pounding so loud it drowned the engines. I wasn't chasing $25,000 anymore. I was chasing the part of me Mason had buried under his profit margins, the part that trusted, that believed. When I landed, the air was thick and wet, smelling like salt and rot. Mason's office was easy to find. Big vinyl sign with his face on it, smiling like a politician. I stood across the street, watching people walk in and out, dressed in blazers and summer dresses. They laughed, they clapped each other on the back, oblivious to the rot behind his grin. I didn't go in. Not yet. My pulse was too wild, my thoughts too sharp. I needed the right strike, something permanent. That night, holed up in a motel that smelled of mildew, I opened his Instagram Live. He was streaming from another party, pool lights glowing, music thumping, glasses raised. "To new beginnings," he yelled, grinning wide. And I grinned too. Because he had no idea his ending was already walking toward him. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow. Okay, I didn't expect this to blow up. I posted the first half of my story because I needed to get it off my chest, but reading your comments, some of y'all had me laughing through my teeth at 3 a.m. Others made me feel like someone finally got it. So, thank you. Couple things people keep asking. Yes, I really gave Mason $25,000. Real money. My money. No, I didn't have a contract, just that stupid diner receipt with his smiley face IOU. I know. It makes me sound like the world's biggest sucker. Some of you called it tuition at the School of Hard Knocks. I guess I should frame the receipt and hang it up in my apartment as a diploma. Some of you said, forget it, move on, live your best life. Respectfully, no. Mason moved on. Mason erased me. I lived through 3 years of overdrafts and eviction threats while he sipped champagne. He built his best life on my bones. This isn't about the money anymore, it's about making sure he never forgets who he buried to get here. And to the handful of people saying I should just confront him face to face? Tempting. But Mason is the kind of guy who turns confrontation into theater. He'll cry, he'll scream, he'll drag the whole room into his meltdown until somehow I look like the villain. I've seen him do it since we were kids. So no, this can't be a screaming match on his turf. It has to be something that sticks. One comment that really hit me, someone wrote, "People like Mason survive by image. Strip that away, and they're nothing." That's exactly it. Mason's empire is duct tape and smoke. He lives off the applause. What happens when the crowd stops clapping? So here's where I'm at. I'm in Miami now. I've seen his office. I've seen the pool parties. I've heard his voice on Instagram Live, raising a glass like the king of a kingdom built on lies. And I've got a stack of receipts, real ones this time. Lawsuits, contractor complaints, dirt he thought he buried. I don't know exactly how this ends yet, but I know one thing. I'm not leaving Miami until Mason feels the ghost of me breathing down his neck. And to whoever commented, "You're the rusty key in his pocket now," that line's been stuck in my head all day. You're right. I am. And sooner or later, I'm going to turn. The first move was small, almost petty. I wanted to test the waters before setting the fire. I started by slipping into one of Mason's open house events. He advertised it publicly on Instagram. Come see how we transform dreams into homes. Free champagne, hors d'oeuvres, sleek brochures. Perfect bait. I dressed like any other curious buyer, khakis and a borrowed button-down. The house was everything mine wasn't. Polished wood floors, faint smell of lemon cleaner, jazz humming through ceiling speakers. Mason was holding court in the living room, tan skin glowing under track lighting, laughing too loud at his own jokes. He wore a gold watch I swear cost more than my car. For a second, my throat closed up. He looked untouchable. He looked happy. Like those 3 years hadn't happened. But then, crack. I watched him corner a contractor near the kitchen, voice dropping low but sharp. You want your final payment? Then get the landscaping fixed before inspection. Don't make me remind you how replaceable you are. The contractor's jaw twitched. He muttered something about already waiting 3 months. Mason's smile never slipped, but I saw his hand clench around the stem of his champagne glass like he might snap it. That's Mason. When charm failed, rage leaked out fast. He'd done it since we were kids, thrown chairs during video games, punched walls when girls dumped him, hurled his phone at a teacher once because he got detention. He'd never learned to lose gracefully. I slipped a flyer into the stack on the foyer table. Looked identical to the others. Same glossy stock, same photo of Mason leaning against a freshly painted porch. Only mine had an extra sheet tucked in. Copies of public court filings. Unpaid contractor claims, liens from botched flips, lawsuits settled quietly. I watched as a couple grabbed the stack, flipped through, frowned. Then another. Then whispers started. Mason didn't notice at first. He was too busy bragging about equity growth. But when he caught sight of furrowed brows, papers passed between hands, his smile cracked. He stormed over, yanked the flyers out of someone's grip, rifled through, face draining color. What the hell is this? He barked. His voice cut the room. Music kept playing, but the mood collapsed. The couple stammered something about just in the pile. Mason's chest heaved, that familiar storm brewing. Then, smash. He threw the glass in his hand against the floor, shards skittering across polished wood. Which one of you thinks you can sabotage me? He roared. Everyone froze. Even the jazz felt louder. People started shuffling toward the door, murmuring excuses. Mason ran a shaking hand through his hair, breathing fast, eyes darting like he expected a traitor to step forward. I slipped out with the rest, heart hammering so hard it felt like my ribs would splinter. My hands smelled like ink from the flyers. It wasn't victory, not yet. But it was the first cut, and watching him unravel, even for a second, was the sweetest breath I'd taken in years. Back at the motel, I laid the rusty key on the nightstand beside me. We start over, Mason had said. Well, maybe we would, but this time I was the one holding the lock. Don't forget to subscribe. 2 days after the open house, Mason went live again on Instagram. I almost laughed at how predictable he was. Hair slicked back, teeth flashing, a poolside apology speech about haters trying to smear my success. He called the court documents misunderstandings and told his followers he was too blessed to be stressed. But the way his eyes darted off camera, the tremor in his hand holding the mic, that was the Mason I knew. The kid who always exploded when the spotlight shifted. I didn't stop there. I'd been building something bigger. See, Miami had given me more than palm trees and humidity. It had given me access. Mason couldn't resist tagging locations. The gym he flexed in every morning, the steakhouse he bragged about closing deals at, the club where he posted blurry 3 a.m. selfies. All breadcrumbs. And I was patient. I struck again at a networking mixer. He rented out a rooftop bar, string lights, catered sushi, investors in linen suits. Mason strutted in late, soaking in the applause like a rock star. I sat at the bar in the corner, cap pulled low, nursing a soda. Then I set my trap. I'd made copies of that diner receipt IOU photo, the one with his smiley face and "I'll pay you back in 12 months." I printed it poster-sized. And with a little sleight of hand and tape, I swapped the bar's promotional poster by the elevator with mine. When the next wave of guests arrived, they were greeted by Mason's own handwriting. "I owe you $25,000, due in 12 months. Mason." I swear I felt the air shift when the first investor saw it. They whispered. Phones came out. Pictures taken. By the time Mason spotted it, his neck was flushed red. He ripped the poster down, shouting about pranks and jealous competitors. People backed away, eyes wide. And then, just like I knew he would, he cracked. He grabbed a chair and hurled it against the wall so hard it splintered. A woman screamed. Music cut off. Mason turned in circles, pointing at random guests. "You think I'm a fraud? You think I don't pay my debts?" His voice cracked. Spit flew. Security rushed in, but not before half the room had their phones up, recording. By the time they dragged him out, his empire was bleeding. Not because of me alone, but because he couldn't stop himself from detonating. I just lit the fuse. Back in my motel, I rewatched the clips flooding social media. Mason's face twisted with rage, his voice breaking as he screamed at people who used to adore him. His carefully built image collapsing in real time. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt my lungs fill all the way. Update 2. Well, it happened. Mason finally blew himself up, and I don't even have to exaggerate, half of Miami saw it live. I woke up yesterday to my phone buzzing nonstop. Not from Mason, of course, he hasn't dared reach out, but from strangers tagging me in clips. TikTok, Twitter, even local news segments. The videos everywhere. Mason, red-faced and sweaty, screaming at his own investors while throwing a chair like some drunk college kid at a frat party. One person captioned it, "This your real estate king?" Another dubbed it with circus music. I've replayed that one at least 50 times. Some of y'all in the comments were right from the beginning. Mason couldn't survive without the mask. All I did was tug the edges. He ripped it off himself. And holy hell, watching him spiral under his own spotlight? That was better than any courtroom justice could have given me. A lot of you warned me, though. Be careful. Guys like this don't go down quietly. Trust me, I know. That's why I've kept my distance. No direct confrontation, no screaming match. I've seen him weaponize his meltdowns too many times. But this was different. This wasn't just me in the blast radius. He nuked himself in front of everyone who mattered to him. To the commenter who said, "Revenge is when he remembers your name every time he explains why he fell." I think you nailed it. Because buried in every copy of that receipt, in every whisper spreading through his investor circles, in every replay of him screaming about debts, my name is there. He can't erase me anymore. And to the handful of people DMing me that I should take the win and walk away, I hear you. But here's the thing. Mason's not done unraveling. I know him too well. He'll claw, he'll rage, he'll make a scene somewhere else. And I'm not walking until he knows exactly who held the mirror up. So yeah, he's felt the first burn. The whole city's laughing at him right now. But I'm not done. Because Mason always swore, we start over, always. And I want to be there when he realizes there's no starting over this time. Don't forget to subscribe. The clips of Mason's meltdown spread like wildfire. For 2 days, he went radio silent. No posts, no lives, no rooftop selfies. Then, like I knew he would, he came back snarling. It started with a new video. He was in his office, blinds drawn, face pale under harsh overhead lights. No music, no champagne, just him staring into the camera. "There's a snake in my life," he said, voice shaking with forced calm. "A jealous nobody trying to destroy what I built. Someone I trusted once. Someone who doesn't matter. His eyes flickered sideways, like he couldn't even look straight into the lens. Then the mask slipped. He slammed his fist on the desk so hard the camera shook. But I will find you, and when I do, you'll wish you never crossed me. My hands went cold watching it. Because he wasn't bluffing. Mason didn't do veiled threats. He did scorched earth. That night, I knew he was close. I felt it before I heard it. The rumble of a car pulling into the motel lot, headlights sweeping across my curtains. Then a knock. Too hard, too fast. "Dan, I know it's you." His voice was unmistakable. Louder, wilder than it used to be. I didn't move. He pounded again, rattling the flimsy door. "You think you can humiliate me? You think you can make me a joke? You owe me for every dollar I turned into something. That was my money the second you gave it to me." My pulse was a jackhammer. I pictured him outside, jaw tight, fists balled, maybe a bottle in his hand. The same boy who once smashed his mom's coffee table when he lost at cards, now grown into a man with more to lose and less control. A neighbor shouted for him to shut up. Tires squealed somewhere in the lot. Mason kicked the door hard enough that the frame cracked, then stormed off, his voice echoing. "You can't hide forever, Danny boy. You're nothing without me." I sat on the bed, the rusty key in my palm cutting a crescent into my skin. My whole body shook, not just from fear, but from clarity. Mason had just confirmed everything. He wasn't untouchable. He was unraveling, fast, and I still held the match. The next morning, local news picked up the motel incident. Real estate mogul involved in disturbance. Grainy footage of him screaming in the parking lot, police lights flashing. They didn't arrest him, just gave him a warning. But the damage was spreading. And that's when I knew my final move had to be public. Permanent. Not another whisper or flyer. Something Mason couldn't explain away. Something that would stick to his name like tar. I opened my laptop, pulled out the stack of documents, the photo of the diner receipt, the videos of him screaming. And I started typing. Not here, not on Reddit. Straight to every journalist, every investor contact, every person who'd ever called him a visionary. If Mason wanted the world to know about the snake in his life, I'd happily introduce myself. I didn't sleep the night I hit send. I blasted the whole package. Lawsuits, contractor complaints, screenshots, the IOU photo, even clips of his motel meltdown to every contact I could dig up. Local reporters, real estate watchdog groups, his investors, his own damn clients. By sunrise, my inbox was on fire. Received, thanks. Can we confirm details? Are you willing to go on record? My hands trembled over the keyboard, but I didn't back down. I signed my name. I wanted Mason to see it. By noon, the first article dropped. Miami house, flipping mogul, accused of fraud, violence. His diner IOU was the header image. That stupid smiley face he'd drawn to make me feel safe now framed his empire's obituary. Mason's response was textbook him, erratic, self-immolating. He went live again, slurring his words like he hadn't slept in days. He screamed that I was a liar, that I was jealous, that I was some broke nobody from Boston trying to drag him down. Then, in the middle of it, he broke a glass on camera, blood streaking down his hand as comments flooded. Yikes. This guy needs help. Never investing with him again. Within 48 hours, his investors pulled out. His LLC's site went down. Contractors who'd been stiffed came forward, piling onto the story. Even the model-type woman from his pool photos unfollowed him, deleted every trace of their perfect life. Mason's name wasn't trending with fire emojis anymore. It was trending with clown ones. And me? I sat in that mildew motel, watching it all collapse in real time, the rusty key heavy in my pocket. I thought I'd feel triumphant. But honestly, it was quieter than that. Like standing on a beach after a storm, wreckage everywhere, but the wind finally still. The last I saw of Mason was another shaky clip someone posted, him stumbling out of his office carrying a cardboard box, yelling at a reporter to get out of my face. His gold watch caught the sun, but his face looked older than I'd ever seen it, twisted with rage and fear. I didn't follow him after that. Didn't need to. His world had already burned. 3 years ago, he blocked me like I was nothing. 3 years ago, I carried a dented key and a hollow promise while he built castles on my bones. Now he can't say my name without choking on it. That's enough. When I finally left Miami, I dropped the rusty key in the ocean. Watched it sink. It wasn't mine anymore. It was never mine. But the look on Mason's face the last time I saw him? That's locked inside me forever.